that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. That's my, like, I need that.
So the big question is, what are the top agents doing to absolutely crush it in real estate, grow their teams, and add more transactions year over year while so many struggle? If you ever thought about this, you're not alone. No one has been able to get the answers until now.
We spent the last few years helping agents sell billions in real estate, rubbing shoulders with top producers, which got us thinking, how can we expose more people to these insights to help raise the standard in the whole real estate industry? We then realized that we could help bridge the gap by getting the secrets from the best of the best so that you can succeed. My name is Andrew Dunn.
And my name is Peter Michael. Welcome to Elite Agent Secrets.
So before we talk about letting go to actually go, I think visualization is going to set us up in order for us to tackle topic number 3. But when you say visualization, what do you mean by that exactly? Is it just visualization of your goals? Or are you talking about the whole experience?
Yeah. So this, I guess to talk about like visualization, I have to give it some context and for why I believe in it as wholeheartedly as I do. So in 2015 and 2004, I came second at my Olympic trials and didn't qualify to go to the Olympics. And my coach asked me, like, do you want to go to the Olympics? Do you want to go? Is this something you really want? I said, I eventually we said yes. And so what we did was we basically did the craziest stuff you could possibly imagine. I lived for 4 days a week in Fort Lauderdale while going to school in person 3 days a week in Toronto. And I did this for 10 months. So I commuted to Fort Lauderdale from Toronto.
I'm sure that was a fun time.
It was awful. It was awful. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, except with the exception of real estate. And during that time, I got obviously very good at sailing and very bad at school. And then at the end, I won the 2 events at the end of that time. I won like without, it wasn't close, basically, to second place. And then I dislocated my shoulder really badly. And I had to have it operated on and put back together. And so I was out for many months. It was a 4-month recovery. And I couldn't sail and I couldn't train. I couldn't do anything, basically. But I could visualize. And I worked really closely with a sports psychologist, and we worked on visualization. And I visualized all of the things that we had trained, and I visualized myself positioning myself differently on the race course. I took all of my mistakes that I had made, and I played it over and over and over in my head in a positive way, because there's negative ways to do that. And every time I visualized it, I visualized myself doing it better from a positioning perspective, from an execution perspective, and so on and so forth. And so after 4 months, I hadn't been in a boat. I hadn't trained. I hadn't done anything. I finished my physio. I got my body somewhat back. So before this, my best world championship result was a 25th. And I went directly from doing rehab and visualization to the world championships, where I came 3rd.
Wow.
With,
holy hell.
Like no training, like this was all, it's all in your head. And so after that, I started visualizing myself winning more. Why wouldn't you? Right. Like, and there were a lot of firsts in my life, and I started visualizing things, and I started not just setting goals, but imagining what is this going to look like? How am I going to get there for sure? But what is it going to look like when I am there? And so one of the things I wanted to have was a real estate portfolio. And so directly after the 2004, I pulled the trigger and we started buying real estate. And within 5 months, we had three properties all functioning properties. I envision myself building my own home and what that would look like. And we're in the process of doing that now. I visualized myself having a successful real estate team, and what that looks like and what commitments are, I just like, you see kind of where things are going to be. And the same as I visualize, like, what is this going to look like for me to do 1,000 real estate deals with my team? What's that going to look like? How many people are on the team? How are they supported? What does it look like when I walk into my office? What does my office look like? Like, I know all of those things because I've been there. I've seen it. I'm the only one. But I think the more detail you can visualize, the more you can see it happening, the more likely it is to actually occur.
So let me ask you this. What if you're unclear on your vision, or for anybody who's listening and they're like, I want to do this, but I'm not sure. Maybe I want to do that. When it comes to visualization, do you have like a process to get clarity on the vision that you're trying to put into fruition at the same time?
I also want to caveat, I also want to jump on the back of his question before you answer, Chris, which is, I also think potentially that question is loading something I'm thinking of, which is some people just shouldn't be doing this. Mm-hmm. The answer is quit, to stop. Right?
That's right.
So like I wanted to kind of piggyback on that because I've got some thoughts, but like visualization is huge for me. And I'd definitely be interested in if you've got any tangibles. Like I actually have a vision board. I'm not sure if you do, where you have like a board with literally the things that you want, or if there is daily things you do, or if it's just kind of you embody it. Yeah.
Well, I'm very fortunate. I work with an assistant who's amazing, and she takes these crazy ideas that I have and she makes them real. So she's, the people around you are really important. You have to have people that can be on that journey with you. That's first of all. I mean, nobody does anything by themselves. So I'm quite fortunate that I have somebody that puts it into that visualize. I'm not like, I don't create vision boards. I don't do that. I'm the nutty professor, right? I'm like, I got this crazy idea and this is what we're going to do. And so I try to paint my pictures with words and then allow the people around me to be able to execute. I do keep a lot of books. I fill books, like all that stuff gets written in there. And I go back to those regularly. I did the same thing as an athlete where I would, if I had the same idea 3 times, I could go back and see it. And then, okay, well, I've had the same idea, independent thoughts 3 times. It's time to execute that. If we haven't done so already. But in terms of like, if you can't get specific on what your goals are and what your vision is, it's because of one of 2 things. Either like you said, Andrew, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. Maybe you're not passionate enough about it. So that's number 1. Are you passionate enough about this to be able to get clear on it, what you want and how you're going to get there? That's kind of I think the most important thing. But I do think that a lot of people are pretty lazy in how they get clear on it. Like, you have to actually do some work on this. You have to sit down and chart out a couple of pathways and think about, what this is going to look like. I always like to start at the end because that's the most fun place, right? I want to be, I've always wanted to be a carpenter. So maybe I'd be like, building cabinets or something. But, when I sell my business, I'm going to sell my business. I want to sell my business and do something else. What does the business look like when I sell it? How many people are working here? What's the valuation? How many transactions? And then you can work backwards from there. It's much easier to do that than it is to imagine the next step. And I think that's the problem. Most people, that when they try to visualize where they're going to be, they start with where they are now.
Right. I agree. 100%.
And it's impossible. It's an impossible task. You'll always underachieve because, the version of me today is an underachiever of myself tomorrow. So
100%.
imagine this whole other person that you would like to be, and then go backwards from there. It's easier.
I think this is like a really important note. I mean, if you disagree, I'd love to hear this, but it's like people who are listening, you've got to understand this. Say you're doing 10 transactions this year and you want to do 100. It's because who you are today isn't good enough, right? Like when you do 100 and you keep going at it, and you look at yourself when you've done 100, and then you look back at your habits and your beliefs and everything you were doing when you were at 10, you will realize you're a whole new fucking animal. Like, it's not the same person. You might have the same skin, the same birthday, you might have the same parents, but you are a totally different beast. And vice versa, when you got a 200, when you got a 500, whatever your goal is, like, they're different people. This is why there's other places this fall in. I mean, an example I always think about is, let's say, people in, say, relationships, they might put on a few extra kind of love pounds, and then the relationships break up, and then all of a sudden they both lose tons of weight and they start working out and they get six packs, and then they're like, but that was what caused their relationship to break down, because they were feeling like lethargic, overweight, and they were just like slow and like didn't really give a shit. And then it's like, well, why are they now doing that now? And it's like, well, that's a different person now. You don't understand that that's not the same person. Like physically, they might, like I said, birthday and stuff, but like they've gone through a transformation, and a lot of that starts with visualization. So I do a ton of this, by the way. Like I personally, like right now, I do actually have a vision board, and they seem kind of stupid in a way, because you're like, why do I need to print out a picture of like the car I've always wanted, right? And I understand why some people look at that. You might be one of them, be like, stupid, like I can just think about the car. And I get it. For me, I've always kind of been like that too, but I thought this year, like I've got some very big goals over the next 5 years that I want to achieve, like incredibly, like stupidly audacious goals that I'm out to achieve. And I've just got it, literally stick it in front of me, right in front of my computer. So every day I'm sat at my computer like 10 hours a day, I see it peripherally. It's right there. I might not stare at it, but it is in my subconscious for 10 hours a day, every day. And I think it's hugely important to your success. You won't realize how visualizing what you want compounds. And I think, have you ever looked back now and gone, shit, that actually happened? And like I visualized that, and I kind of didn't really recognize that I've blown past that original goal that I'd set by just creating habits that have then compounded to like pass my wildest expectations. Because that's another thing as well. I think visualization can at least build good habits. And those habits tend to be more than what's necessary to pass your goals. And then all of a sudden your goal of, say, yours is huge with 1,000, but why not, like, I'm not saying one day you'll wake up with 5,000, but there is, because obviously they're huge rifts, but let's say it's 100, they could definitely wake up one day, realize at the end of the year they've done 150. And that's like, 5 years ago, they didn't even think that was possible. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the, there's a good little bit of a line. I heard it once and maybe I've like added to it or whatever, but what I tell people, especially people that associate me with who I was as an athlete, because they're still in my sphere, and I'm trying to break through to them that I'm a competent real estate agent, and that I'm worth a look at here. And so what I tell them is, don't judge me by who I was yesterday, because my growth gang is stronger than you know. You judge me on who I am today and what I'm able to put in front of you today. And I don't judge people by who I knew, how I knew them before. I give them the same benefit. But I mean, in terms of like exceeding your expectations or whatever, this is a bit of a warning, or a little bit of like just a hey, be careful. That, if you're an ultra competitive person with very high set of goals, it's very hard to sometimes accept the gains that you have made, because it's never enough. And it can be really soul crushing. And this is where, like, I have a wonderful wife who really kind of evens me out in a lot of ways. And like I get my hopes up a lot. Like every day, I have my hopes. I start here, and she goes, she goes, maybe you shouldn't be quite so hopeful, but like you get your hopes up quite as much. And I was like, no, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. That's my, like, I need that. And some days I come home crushed.
Yeah.
And some months or even, quarters are crushing.
100%.
But I would say there's a whole bunch of movie lines and stuff, I'm sure, but there's like the Brad Pitt line from Moneyball is, I hate losing. I hate losing more than I like winning. And there's a difference.
Yeah, there is.
And that's the problem, is like, how do you keep your cup full? Because you're never going to win as much as you lose. And if the win doesn't fill your cup enough, then you will run out of energy. Those losses will add up, and they'll outweigh the wins. And this is where people get snowed under and crushed under all the things that we're talking about, is these really high goals. And they come with it a lot of failures and a lot of misses and a lot of soul crushing defeats, that you have to be able, you have to expect it. It has to be a part of what you do. Because I think it's great. We can sit here and we can talk about all these wins and how wonderful everything is. And all you got to do is visualize. Well, shit, buckle up. It's going to be a bit of a rough ride, and there's going to be a lot of hurt that comes along with it too. And I don't think that there's an end to that if you're properly wired.
Hey, thanks for listening to this episode. Now, before you go, we're giving access to a private training we did where we revealed the top 3 niches to get listings today completely for free. So if you want access, you can go and download that training at eliteagentsecrets.com. We're regularly releasing new trainings, guides and cheat sheets, so make sure to head over to eliteagentsecrets.com and sign up so you don't miss out.